All right, welcome back to the Skillist podcast. I am Brad Salon from the Root School in Central Vermont.
Matthew Corradino for the Inner Skills. St. Croix, that's me. At least in my day job. I moonlight at Tracker School, New Jersey.
Oh, right, that's what you mean.
It's not much moonlight. It's mostly like, light pollution from New Jersey.
Yeah, I thought you
A
were
little bit
referring
of
to your
moon filtering
vigilante
through it.
crime fighting that you do as your alter ego.
my vigilante crime fighting in Waretown, New Jersey.
Yeah, exactly.
All the meth heads sneaking around and vigilanteing all the meth heads, sneaking something healthy into their meth pipe. Is that what I'm doing? It's going off the rails early.
Yeah, it is. Word. So this week, the topic is scout classes, scout skills, scoutness.
You're saying this is an episode of whose scout class is better, or my scout class is better than your scout class?
I don't really want to get into that. I don't feel like it's fair.
Like I was smiling and you.
I got to take something and then go innovate off of it and put it in a different context and make it like have no restraints on how I designed it. And you've inherited something that has like all these traditions and requirements and rules and bigger numbers, and yeah, we have a pretty. I don't think it'd be a fair comparison.
Whoa! So you're saying my scout class is better than yours? I got it.
Sure.
My scout class is my scout class is bigger than yours, Brad. Isn't that all it comes down to? Oh, I know. Size doesn't matter. It's how you use it. Only people with a small size say that.
What happened?
What?
No, did you see my camera go out of focus?
Everything's out of focus right now. It's just pure blur. There's just pure blur going on right now. You see? That's because the camera, the whole setup likes my scout class better than yours.
Oh man, what is
Would you like
going
to go
on?
to Brad's scout class and watch him be blurry? Oh, is this talk sponsored by Monster Energy Drink? Is that what that can is for?
That was a liquid death, bro.
It's
an iced tea.
Just in case.
What the fuck is going on with my focal plane?
Are we
Why
going to
is
have
it
to
here?
start all over?
There
We're
we
losing
go.
some good
There we
jokes
go.
if we have to start over. Is that better?
We don't. We're not gonna.
Oh,
Everyone
I
can
can
deal with
see
it.
you now. You're not lost in the shadows anymore.
Let me get my notes together.
is this your
Reasons
Dave
why
Letterman
Matt's scout
impression
class
right now?
sucks much worse than my scout class. Number 1, Matt Corradino is teaching it. Number 2, Matt Corradino helped to design it.
Oh, come on.
Done.
Are you going to do your Dave Letterman thing and like reset your notes once again? As everybody take a sip off of your beverage now, and everybody can see that mine is a homemade beverage with homemade coconut milk. What's yours? This podcast is sponsored by
It's Liquid
Rockstar
Death.
Energy Drink. That's it. You see the label is turned back the other way, everybody, because he never secured that sponsorship right there. But in case the company would like to sponsor up,
Liquid Death.
you've got to X that out now. I've been laughing a lot as far as this is a good episode already. All right, why is your scout class better than mine then, Brad? Tell me.
I mean, because I was able to go research the stuff outside of the context of the tracker school and go find other mentors to design the class around what was going to be most applicable for our students, and to, with 16 people or 12 people, the flexibility of what I can provide for them individually as students is just very different than like 40 people or 30 people, or my scout class was like 115 people when I took it.
Yep, I was in that class.
And so there's definitely.
But I wasn't in your stupid group. Sorry.
Oh, my group was stupid. We had two guys in my scout class.
Let's do that.
We had two guys who wore like $1,000 worth of King of the Mountain and would not stock the entire week. These two fucking guys in thousands of dollars worth of wool in August in fucking Jersey.
Because if they stocked, they would have been sweating even more than they were sweating. I had people who wouldn't crouch, but who weren't dressed in King of the Mountain. This isn't whose scout class is better. It's whose scout group was stupider. I just based this whole talk.
And then one dude who later really got his shit together. I think it was during my advanced. He got shell shocked by fireworks and just fell off the map for an hour and a half while we snuck around in the dark, being like, "Yo, yo, yo, where are you? Where are you?" Thinking he was dead, and he was just fucking hiding under a bush, scared of fireworks. It was just God damn it.
We had gone overboard one year with the fireworks. We had too many. We should not have been handed so many fireworks. We had too many. It was just way too much. Anyway, there was a couple different people who had complained about it. One was a student, and he was from Israel. So obviously he's a veteran, because if you're in Israel and you're a man, you're automatically bound to be in the Israeli army. So he had seen live action, probably more rocks than bullets when he was there. Anyway, he was talking to his group about how silly and stupid the fireworks were as an awareness tool. Meanwhile, walking through an ambush zone with fireworks blowing up everywhere, uncomfortably laughing hysterically, clearly extreme trauma reaction. The other person was a volunteer who's from Ireland, and she's older, so she remembers a lot of IRA violence, and she was talking about, I just don't understand why you guys are using these fireworks as the awareness tool, because of silence and blah blah blah. It just reminds me of being back home, and oh shit, I guess I do see why you use those things. Because it was eliciting that, response that even though people think it's silly and dumb, when they're blowing up around you and you're merely making the game real, they can be effective tools.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're valuable simulation, and they definitely create a stress response. And learning how you respond during a stress response is incredibly valuable. But yeah, so I think my scout class group may have been dumber than yours, but it's hard to know. That was a long time ago. I will say it's really interesting watching, thinking back on that group and how bad we were at being a group, and now thinking about the groups that I'm training with, and we had this one group of students who came through a lot of our advanced classes, and so they got to work together for several years. And it wasn't exactly the same group every year, but it was close. And watching the development and a team really form, to me, really there is such a huge difference between a group of people who train together and have standard operating procedures dialed in and know how to act and work together, that the effectiveness of that team it's a whole different level than a group of people, even who are really skilled, who don't know how to work together or who haven't worked together and rehearsed working together. I
think that's one of the it's probably the most important thing that people don't really think about when they think about the scout skill set, is that working together. And then if you put it back into a tribal context, right, back in the day when people were living by their own means, or living tribally, everybody knew everybody really well. So your working together part, in theory, could be simpler because you already knew the people, like you knew his family history, you were there since they were born, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But then it would have come down to like selection of the right people. Because, you know, you're eliminating that variable of people not being able to work so well together. So the bigger variable then is like the person's mindset, like how much of a D-bag are they or not.
Well, that's another thing that's interesting about...
They care more about the group.
Right. Well, and that's a thing that's very weird about the scout class that's different from the military or from, like, you know, the context you're referring to in a more indigenous setting, is that, like, people are paying us to come learn a thing unless they are dangerous or, like, really not a match for the class, then they're going to take the class. And they could be the shittiest teammate in the world, and you as another student and me as an instructor just have to deal with these people being fucking assholes, and we can call them on their bullshit, but like, or you could have somebody who's like physically having trouble, maybe not even for their own reason. They rolled their ankle and now they're loud as fuck, or they're just like incapable of moving. Either way, like in a different context, a more realistic context, you would wash people out and you would then end up with a group of people who had the ability to work as a team and to perform the tasks needed as individuals and as teammates. And, then
I think that
you're moving forward with a different sort of thing than like a group of randos who signed up for a class.
So you're talking about like changing the context, or you're talking about like modern, how we're living nowadays, but you kick that person out of the group because they're a D-bag? Like, what's your context here?
Well, I'm saying, like, in a scout class setting, like, you can't just, like, wash people out. There's no, like, it's harder to provide repercussions where, like, if you're in the military and you don't follow your commanding officer's orders, that's insubordination, and there's a whole, like, system for how to deal with that. At a scout class, if you're in a group of 4 and we say, like, you know, Jane is the leader tonight, everybody needs to do what the fuck Jane says, and you're like, Jane's a dumbass, I'm not going to do what she says. What system do we have other than, like, public shaming for reinforcing that you need to do what Jane says? Whereas, like, if you're in a hunting group, you could just be like, yo, you have to go back. We're not hunting with you. Or, like, if you're in a military team, like I said, like, there's a set of procedures to follow if people don't do what they're told. Because in that context, people need to do what the fuck they're told is. Or like, people need to do what they're fucking told to do. And most people, especially adults coming in to take a class, aren't thinking that they're going to be like following orders of other students, you know, and are resistant to that.
So when you're talking about, like, what is that system by which we force people to do what we want, what we need them to do in that class? I mean, to me, for a lot of people, that's the whole class. That's the whole point of the class, is for them to realize that they've been an asshole for their whole lives. They need to quit being an asshole. You laugh as if it's not true, but I know you've seen it before. You know,
no, I'm laughing because it's true. I'm laughing specifically because
it's so true.
It's at least 50% of what people walk away with from that training.
It has to be what people walk away with, because, I mean, otherwise you're not teaching anything new. I mean, if you've already taken... So you have prerequisites for your scout class, right? Like, at least have taken...
Not anymore.
If not with you, though. So you just let anybody off the street who's never learned any skills into your scout class.
They have to have a phone call with me.
Okay, so you have a screening process. where you
I essentially try and scare people away from taking the class. I describe it.
You scare them with a big scary voice.
It's going to be
There's
miserable.
There's a picture of you looking very stern.
We're going to make it hard, and it's going to happen late at night and early in the morning, and I'm not going to care if it's raining. And there'll be
what I need you to do. You called me to be on my scout class. What I need you to do is I need you to watch about 6 hours of the Skillist podcast, but I need you to just look at me and not Matt. And that face that I have, that I'm wearing, you just got to imagine that face is looking at you because you just did something really stupid, and I don't like you. If you can make it through 4 hours of Brad's stern face, taking it on as a personal dilemma, then you can come to my scout class. Goodbye. Click.
I feel like I'm not very stern, especially in this this context.
I'm just. I know you well enough to know that this is a happy face, so I'm not worried about it.
I know. I'm like, goddamn.
Hilarious.
All right, does everyone want to see my upset face? If you can't see my eyes anymore, then I'm actually upset.
If the camera is turned off, that's Brad's unhappy face. Was there a quick flash of his hand coming in front of the screen and the camera getting slapped across the way? So anyway, you have a screening process, right? And maybe definitely. Part of that screening process is not like... Of course. So,
ethically, the first thing I say to people is... Ethically, what I say to people, the first thing I say is, if you're trying to take this class for anything other than self-defense, don't bother coming. I can't teach these skill sets to people that's going to allow them to evade other people's awareness and to, physically damage other people's bodies if they're going to be after that information for anything other than defending themselves. So that's the premise. And then, from there, it's, here's what to expect at the class. And here's how it's wildly different. If it's dinner at the bow class and you want to run to town and grab food, fine. If it's dinner at the scout class, you're not leaving property. You're on property for the week. There's
yeah.
You go lay down in your tent for 15 minutes. But yeah, people got to know what to expect.
If part of that screening process is have you learned movement? Have you learned natural camouflage? So in the context that we teach it at, they have to have taken a certain number of classes before we teach them the scout class, and that's all. Not necessarily part. A big part of that is kind of laying the groundwork that you lay in your phone call, where we're already talking about what the scout mindset is. We're already talking about the way that we view survival, which is through the lens of the scout. So all the classes that we teach, from the standard class, through all of them, all come from the lineage of the scout and come from the teachings of the scout. So you've already learned by the time you get to our scout class, you've already learned the stalking, you've already learned the camouflage, you've already learned a good bit of the tracking. You've already learned some different tools for increasing your awareness. Whether or not you actually use them is up to you. So we're not really teaching any of that part. So a lot of what we're teaching during the class is why it's good not to be an asshole. And
yeah, I don't know. So
we still teach some movement, and that's still part of it. And it still has to change based on you're in a group now versus individually. But we're not teaching a lot of that stuff for the first time.
Well, right, but so here's the thing: is I don't give a fuck how many classes somebody's taken. That doesn't mean shit as to how much they've actually learned. I can pay my $800 and sit at the back of the class and not do fuck all and learn nothing. And so that's one reason. I found that people who had prerequisites weren't necessarily any more capable than people who didn't. And then, because you take a kid who grew up hunting and knows how to stalk a deer, and then some guy who's taken 5 classes but never practices anything and didn't grow up doing anything, and that kid with no prereqs is gonna crush the other dude. You know,
well, I'm not
or
talking
like
about,
sometimes it's largely about attitude as far as their performance. And then,
well, that's what I'm saying is
the other thing is like with scout class for me, we have people taking it who are like going to do dangerous things. Like I'm going to freight train ride through Mexico, and I'm a 5'4" female who weighs 115 pounds. Like I don't want to tell that girl, yo, you got to take these other 3 classes first. I'm just like, because ultimately her ability to pick up the scout skills doesn't rely on whether or not she knows how to do a bow drill.
Well,
you know?
So there's another way to look at that context, which is, okay, so for what you're talking about like applying the scout skills in a very specific context, right? Somebody riding freight trains and trying to protect themselves. So in theory, you could just take a martial arts class for that. The reason why it's important to know bow drill if you're into the scout skills is because let's say that we're utilizing these skills for the reasons that they were originally meant to be utilized. For whatever reason, you are like...
But that's a fantasy context.
Why is it a fantasy context? Nobody in the world has ever had to evade... Nobody in our modern world ever... No. Let me finish. If somebody is doing a reconnaissance and has no logistical backup, and now all of a sudden is not back where they're safe at, where's their survival skills? Somebody is out messing around, you know, like doing their little scout game thing, and they get lost in the woods, and they don't have survival skills as a backup. And now they died because they don't know what a decent shelter is. So those survival skills,
obviously,
you can't separate those survival skills from the scout skills.
No, they're a good thing to learn, but it doesn't mean they're exclusive. So, like, do I grill my scout students and tell them that they are way better equipped to handle these things if they've practiced survival skills? Honestly, half them can't even lay a fucking tarp correctly. So, like, you know, the admonition of, like, did your scout shelter stay dry? Like, I definitely am pushing those things. But when it comes down to it, the things that are really going to, like, save my students' asses is, like, nav, threat detection, threat avoidance, counter tracking. Like, those are when I hear stories from people about, like, hey, I was in a hairy situation and I used these skills, it's always awareness of threat, nav, or, like, counter tracking and hiding. And so those things, like, can exist. People can learn those skill sets without having to have first taken our survival classes. And, like, I wish that they would take our survival classes or other people's. I tell people to go get medical training at schools that teach wilderness first aid. Like, we don't teach that, but it's incredibly valuable. It's ridiculous to me how many people, like, think they're studying survival but don't carry med kits or even have, like, an understanding of first aid. So, like, those things... that doesn't invalidate them that you don't have to take them before learning scout. I think they can all happen at the same time.
So there's two things there that having those prerequisites, like, helps, is that I don't have to teach them stalking. They've already learned it, right? I don't have to teach them how to put their
maybe they're just wearing
down.
King of the Mountain and walking at the back of the trail. But
that's not up to me. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing that we're trying to teach them is the perfection of skills. So great, you just took the classes so you could get to the scout class. You get to the scout class and you have your ass handed to you all week, and you look back at the things we've been saying over and over and over again for many classes, which is to do your best to perfect all of the skills. It's not even like an enormous part of the scout mindset. It's like, is what the scout is like reaching for mastery of all of the skills of survival. If you are a true master of hunting, but you don't need to take a scout class.
That kind of like grandiose approach. That grandiose approach, though, isn't going to help like your average person who just wants to like be safer while hiking. You know,
how do you know?
Because
how do you know?
I don't want to set a barrier that says like instead of spending a week and $800 to take a class, you now need to spend 3 weeks and spend $2,400 in order to learn these skills of how to defend yourself and your loved ones.
So
like, I don't want to put a barrier to entry.
You're jumping outside the hoop here. What I'm trying to say is those 3 classes are not a prerequisite. They are part of the class. They're the first 3 weeks of the scout class. Then you take the scout class, which is like the scout portion of it. But all those classes are all part of it. And that's a different way of looking at it versus, hey, do you want to come to learn how to protect yourself so you can jump trains in Mexico?
Yeah, no. So,
and I'm not dogging on that person, and I'm not dogging on somebody's situation, but I'm saying that this isn't like a make them take those classes first. This is part of it, right? Like,
yeah, you know, as far as I'm concerned, though, the 3 days of the advanced tracking class that you spend learning fucking micro pressure releases has not saved a single person's ass compared to threat detection.
You cannot say that. You can't say that.
Yes, I can.
I personally know.
Because
I personally know.
Fantasy nonsense.
Listen, I personally know 2 people who were in that same scout class that we were in, whose entire job was tracking people outside of caves in Afghanistan, and they personally told me that the macro pressure release studies, just them doing it, they didn't say, I saw this little bit over here. They just said, doing those pressure release studies directly affected their ability to track people outside of caves and keep them from getting blown up. You cannot tell me that.
So explain to me how a micro pressure release through a boot or a sandal track is 1, legible, 2, what are they gleaning from that?
Whether the person was carrying
to
something
say like
or not,
I used tracking to do reconnaissance, I buy that all day. I used micro pressure releases, fucking sure. I could tell you a story about anything.
Well, all right.
Like
I'm not gonna. That's fine. You don't have to buy it. That's totally fine.
And I also still don't.
If you put the dirt time in, you might buy it. But if you don't put the dirt time in,
I
you're
have
never
put
going to
plenty
buy
of
it.
dirt
And
time
that's
into
fine.
it and found it to be fruitless. And I'm yet to meet anyone who will subject themselves to any sort of like diagnostic testing to see if they are actually doing micro pressure releases. So I don't find it important to take a student who wants to learn to defend their family and say, you need to stare at the ground for 3 days and pay me to do it so that you can learn this other thing that's only vaguely related.
So I would be I would feel like it would be ignorant of me after a student has taken the scout class to say to them, you're now able to defend your family. So I never taught the scout class from the perspective of like being able to perform something after taking the class. And as far as the micro and macro pressure, why would somebody take the class?
Yeah.
Because they're interested in the skill set, because they want to be able to like stalk.
But do they want to walk away with a valuable skill set?
No, maybe they just want to have a good time. Maybe they just want to. They just want to take the class because they want to enjoy the class. Like maybe they just are doing it because it sounds cool. You know, maybe they learned from somebody previously and they were like, "Oh, sweet, that sounds really awesome. I want to do that one time in my life." Maybe they've been practicing a whole lot.
Right, but if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to run like airsoft zombie killing scenarios.
Yeah, but that might not be as enjoyable.
if we're not, it'd be more enjoyable if you didn't have to worry about your students learning anything and coming away with like, can I actually perform the skills?
No, I get bored with that. Personally, I don't have an interest in like, hey, let's go and shoot each other and like I enjoy the teaching aspect more. Personally, like I wouldn't enjoy that as much as teaching scout class.
I'm just talking about like,
but yeah. So there's lots of reasons why people might take the class, and I mean, you could dog on the micro and macro pressure releases all you want, but
I never said
you don't actually
macro.
But
just
if
to
you
clarify,
micro pressure,
I've only criticized the micros.
Micros and macros
to me is where
micros and macros are in one category, and major pressure releases are in the other category. So you could dog on the micros and macros all you want, but if you can't say one way or another, then your criticism would be just as useless as my like building up of it. You know, my celebration of it is just as useless as your criticism of it. If neither of us can do it, then neither of our opinions are of any value. So whether or not it's important,
but
to me,
I also have not seen it taught to people in a way that's useful.
If you don't personally believe, if you, Brad Salon, doesn't personally believe that a micro pressure release it will ever tell you anything of value, then obviously that's why you're never going to put the time into it, right? It's like you got to, like, a lot of people could look at the major pressure releases and say the same exact thing.
But what I'm saying though is that
any time looking at tracks.
No, but I did put time in, and I did take those classes, and I did take it at faith. You know, I did give the benefit of the doubt, and I worked hard to see it, and I drew the thumbprint squiggles, and I, did all that shit for a long time. And then when I was on my own and it came time for me to be able to like put my money where my mouth is and perform the skills, the ones that didn't ever provide any useful outcome to me, no matter how much work I put into them, they fell away. And the ones that were successful and had reliable, repeatable results, I kept. And I never witnessed anyone in a testable way that wasn't just like, oh, somebody said something and everybody fucking believed them just because they said it, which is an insane thing to do, to think that people just say the truth all the time. I don't think that. And so just to take somebody at face value that everything they say is true, I have not seen any real proof of anyone doing micro pressure releases and taking the same size track, a male and a female with who both have the same length foot, and looking at the track and being like, definitively, this is a female because of this thing right here that we can all see and agree on is in the track. This makes it a female track. Now look at this one, same size. Here is what makes it a male. This is the penis part, and here are the balls part of what you can see in the track. I don't fucking... I've not seen it. I've never seen it. I am open to seeing it. I am open to looking at the track and being like, yeah, I see that. Now let's have these 6 women walk through the box, and we're going to see this ovary track. This missing pock of sand that's missing, that's, a half a grain of sand or whatever the hell it's supposed to be, that I'm supposed to read in different substrates through shoes.
So the only time I personally in a group, the only time I've been able to like have definitive proof of what I was seeing in a micro and macro was in a group, and it was like it was pretty major. Like, it wasn't a small area; it was a large area that corresponds to the lungs. Like, it was a whole area of the foot where, like, it was just like, it's kind of hard to describe, but it was like these arcs kind of, and then the other side was arcing the other way. Anyway, it was just like this area where the ground looked What are you covering your face for? How am I supposed to describe the way that the earth looks? The grains of sand were lined up exactly like this. Okay? Exactly like that. No matter how many times the person stepped through the box, all of the steps in the same area of the foot, it looked like this. Right? And then on the bottom side, there was a curve, 2 curves going the other way. It was like 2 lines kind of making, it was more of a ridge. Anyway, we looked at it, we looked at our notes, we looked at it when nobody was like confident in any way, shape, or form. We said, well, there's this whole thing in your lung area. So we figured there's something with your lungs. And the person had serious asthma from the time that they were a young kid. Like, always had to have the breathy thing that asthma people have, the inhaler that people have. Like, it was a serious issue. So that's my only personal experience with it. Now, you said something in there that I found pretty entertaining, which was you said, I'm just going to believe that it's true because this person told me that it's true. There is a person who told you those things who did not say it was true, who said, you prove it right or you prove it wrong. So it's fine if it doesn't work, but you have to prove
this whole fucking
that
thing
it doesn't work. You have to prove that it doesn't work.
The fucking overarching thing, the disclaimer, if this doesn't work for you, it's your fault. You suck. I teach everything that works.
He never said that.
Right or prove
he
it
never
wrong.
once said that. He did
implied.
not say that.
And he said over and over again.
Is it? It's implied for you. It doesn't imply for me.
And then I looked at this micro and I could see that this guy had a small dick, and I walked over and I was like, who left the track with the small dick in it? Like, did
you ask the person to whip it out? Did you prove it wrong? He wasn't, man.
He had a huge hammer on him, dude. It was not a small-dicked man, and he said it was a small-dicked man.
How do you know?
Then I
did
knew.
You look at his dick?
No.
How did you know?
I could see it through his pants, bro.
How did you prove it? How do you know that he didn't have a really bad inguinal hernia?
I have not
and that his bulge wasn't from an inguinal hernia?
Here's the thing, man, and let's get back to like the context of Scout. Is that if we started this conversation with like, what's the difference between what I've done with our Scout class and what I experienced when I took mine, is that I've taken away everything that I couldn't repeatably get good results out of or have students get good results out of. And so, like in my way of the Scout, we were supposed to inhabit our Scout spirit and then walk the trail and leave less deep tracks than if we were not inhabiting our Scout spirit. So yeah, at my way of the Scout class, which was like a secondary class, an advanced Scout class, but like those examples of skill sets that were taught that were like questionable at best in terms of their efficacy, like their usefulness in real life dangerous situations. Now, I'm not going to wholesale dismiss like using intuition. That would be silly. But I also think that like teaching people stuff that has the caveat that if you can't perform what I'm teaching you to perform, it's because there's something wrong with you, is not, if you put in time and practice and applied what your instructor has showed you and it's still not working, and everyone else around you is like, well, it's working for me. And it's like, okay, but let's see the proof of that. And it's like, no, you shouldn't even be questioning it. Like, it starts to get into some pretty murky fucking territory where we could just also get really good at the skills that do work, that we do know, like, have efficacy, and actually build a lot of skill in those instead of worrying about all this fancy shit that doesn't actually do anything. So that's my point.
If you're going to use intuition, right, utilize intuition, You need a practice, an exercise, a trigger to use it, to experience intuition, to have it happen, right? I had a feeling because I had a feeling. That happens. That's not a thing you turn on. It's not a thing you use. It's something that happens, that is through experience, through the flow of life. If you want to then say,
by use intuition, I just mean pay attention to it.
So
I just mean like use it as valuable data.
Okay, fine. How do you pay attention to intuition? Like, how do you do that? Again, you need a trigger.
You don't ignore it. When the hair stands up on the back of your neck and you're like, ugh, everything about this feels fucked up.
But what is intuition
ignoring
telling
that?
You? What is intuition telling you all the other times that your hair is not stucking up on the back of your neck?
At that moment, it might be telling me nothing.
Or it might be telling you a whole lot more information that you're not paying attention to because the only part you're sensitive to is that really high danger factor.
I don't know what you're talking about. You put it in a context.
What's going to cause the hair on the back? What's going to cause the hair on the back of your neck to stand up? Is usually something like, pretty major, right? But what is intuition telling you when there's not a danger?
To me, here's the functionality of how this works. Our senses are taking in way more information than our conscious brains can process at any given moment. But all of that sensory data is being stored in our subconscious, where it's being synthesized.
Not just our subconscious. It's also being stored in our nervous system, which is spread out throughout our entire body, as well as our conscious mind. And the whole question between what is conscious mind and what is subconscious mind is subject to a shitload of questions, because there's a lot of evidence that
that's
points
murky,
to the majority of our thought processes happen subconsciously. So to call something conscious versus subconscious, there's a murky water there.
Sure, but you get what I'm saying. Like, are you thinking through the point A to point B of like, oh, I saw a guy over there, so there's danger? Or is something not just fucking adding up? You're looking at the street looks empty, but there's something off where you're like, I don't know what it is, but something is telling me this is fucking sketchy. And to me, it's because your senses have picked something up in your non-conscious, however the fuck you want to, your non-linear thinking brain has crunched that data and come up with there's something dangerous about to happen. Like,
well,
cutting your hand.
Our non-linear thinking brain does not crunch data. It doesn't do that. It takes the world in
whatever the fuck it does. It takes lots of things and synthesizes them, and it compares them, and
it doesn't synthesize. It doesn't synthesize anything. It receives.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about our non-linear brain that you just mentioned. My non-linear thinking brain crunches that data. It doesn't crunch data. It doesn't synthesize anything. It receives information from the world outside of ourselves. That's what our brain does.
Sits there?
Yeah. Whether I use it or not depends on whether I have a system for using it. If I've learned my entire life that you don't trust anything that doesn't have data attached to it, those are the only things I'm going to pay attention to. If I've learned through my whole life that you must have concrete proof for this, where it doesn't count, then no, I'm not. I'm not arguing the semantics at all. I'm saying if because of the way that you were trained, you refuse to accept that something unless you have the physical proof right in front of you. And what I'm saying is...
literally the exact opposite thing of what you're saying is what I'm trying to explain.
All right, go ahead.
What I'm saying is that there's a place in which you just get a feeling that you don't have the data at hand for, but you have a feeling. To me, my explanation for that is that you've taken in a lot more than you are like mentally, purposefully processing, and you are processing all that extra. You're just not doing it in this little way, and something comes out of that miasma of extra information and extra processing that screams up to your conscious mind in the form of a feeling of like, this is fucking sketchy, don't do this. I honestly, I could say 99% of the time physical. That it rides the line of all of the things. It doesn't even matter if it's physical or not. What I'm saying is that like you get a feeling that is unexplainable, that you don't have the data to back up, but it's strong and you pay attention to it and you don't die. Like 99% of the time that I like injure myself or cut myself badly like I just did, I get a fucking warning before it happens where it's like, oh, this is dumb, don't do this, or like, this isn't the way to do it, or slow down, or there's some little fucking voice that's like, yo, this isn't adding up. And if you listen to that voice, it works out a lot better than when you fucking don't. So what I was just trying to explain is like the mechanism for me in which I see intuition working. It doesn't matter if I'm right or not. What matters is that there are times in which you get a feeling that's different from like I don't want to because it's scary feeling. It's like a physical, mental, emotional combo of just like ugh or like a pushing towards or whatever. People know those feelings. In a context of life or death, following those feelings is definitely important. So that to me is different than you need to go meditate and inhabit a scout spirit, which you can send down the trail ahead of you to tell you whether or not there's danger. Those are two different things to me. One is like an animal process we inherited from millions of years of evolution, and the other is a construct that humans made up to make ourselves feel good.
Which one? What you described as the mechanism
the sending
of
my scout spirit down the trail ahead of me.
Did you realize that when you were talking in there, you said it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong? So if it doesn't matter if intuition is right or wrong, and it's just a feeling that I need to listen to, why not spend time trying to call forth, like receive the world from that aspect of our being that has the ability to be intuitive? And this all has to do with the scout.
Because it becomes a thing that you then expect to be able to use on demand that I've never seen it work that way.
I think that if you practice it enough, you realize very quickly that it's not something that's on demand, but that, oh, I have a feeling. Now's the time to use that scout spirit. And we've kind of come off the rails from the scout class in the first place. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make is because we started talking
micro
about
pressure
like
releases in the same category.
Of what? Yeah, so what if you use it and it works one time? What if you use those micros and macros and it works one time? Well, if it doesn't matter if it's right or not. You just already said that about intuition. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Doesn't matter, right? You listen to it.
No, for micros and macros, I want to be able to repeatedly look at a track and use them.
Yeah, but how many times
I want to be able to be like, this is where I look on the foot for male-female indicators, or this is where I look in the foot to know if somebody's carrying something heavy in the right hand.
How many times okay, let's say you learned tracking from a book. You've been out in the woods a whole bunch of times and you've learned it from a book, and the book has a picture of a track. It's a whatever track, let's say an otter track, or let's say a deer track, something more common. How many times out of 100 does that track that you see in real life look like that book? Potentially out of 100 steps, 0. But you still accept that the deer was there. You can see one track that's clear, but there's more tracks before it and after it. You can't even see them because they're not clear. They don't look like that book. They don't look anything like that book, but you accept that it's real. Why not with all of the rest of the scout skills, which the micro and macro pressure releases are a scout skill. The major, at least as taught from the lineage that Tom has passed down, right? The micro and macro pressure releases is a scout skill. The major pressure release is a scout skill. Tracking in general, the way it's taught at tracker school, that's a scout skill, right? That's why that was taught in there. Whether or not it's usable, I mean, who's to say? How many times in a real life situation have you ever been covered with mud camo, stalking around some threat? It's probably not very useful most of the time, but it's still, I'd rather practice those skills and be prepared for that 1% time than not to be prepared for that 1% time. And that's why I'm fine with the prerequisites, because I see it all as a holistic piece. And like I personally don't separate out like what the scout does. And really, I guess the whole reason why earlier on I was talking about something about, like what are we trying to teach at a scout class? And I was thinking it's like really what you're trying to teach is like not being an a-hole is kind of what you're teaching. Or like a mindset towards the world. It might not be specifically that. Be nicer to people. Although that's important, right? That mindset might be like, I don't want to perfect this shit. And I'm not trying to say whether I'm right or wrong about this or whether you're right or wrong about it. I'm just saying I see value in the practice. But I don't spend that much time looking at micros and macros.
You've been so, you're like, you just like hurtled over the map into different places.
Yep.
So, first of all, yeah, I mean, like, the don't be an asshole part of it is a good baseline. I hope that my scout students also walk away with some skill sets that they can put into practice. I think awareness of threat, and if you're going to learn anything at a scout class, is the thing that will be the most useful in actually keeping you safe in the world. It's just like be more aware more often. It's also one of the things that will keep you from being an asshole, because if you're aware of yourself and how you're acting and how you're feeling, and you're actually paying attention to how you're affecting others, you're probably going to end up being less of an asshole. So back to awareness again on that one. But I think that I also really hope that, like, when it comes to the hard skills in terms of either actually avoiding threats or, like, God forbid, setting a human trap or using martial arts in a real situation, like, I hope our students never actually need any of that. Like, those would all be some pretty rough situations in which it really doesn't matter what your skill set is. You're still exposing yourself to, like, pretty extreme danger. Like, being in a street fight is fucking dumb. Ooh. And it should be avoided at all costs. Like,
but if it happens, you want to know a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's why I train. But I also know from training that, like, a dumb newbie beginner can flail when I'm bringing them down and fucking elbow me in the face if I'm not guarded and careful, or if something just goes wrong. Like, you could just trip over something, or you could just, like, somebody could have a box cutter and you could have amazing skills, but they just fucking opened you up. Like, it's
quick,
like, yeah. And so it's the best form of self-defense is avoidance of threat. 100%. Yep. And then, like, do we look at what happens in the times when you can't avoid threat? Sure. But the baseline absolutely should always be that. So, which honestly, like, a lot of that goes back to don't be an asshole. Like, are you in a threatening situation because of your ego? If so, then, like, good luck to you, and also you're probably gonna fuck around and find out. Like,
yeah, or not, or you'll be really lucky and nobody will call you on it that cares.
Yeah. Man, do you have trouble with like?
Yep.
We had this one guy at Scout class just not take accountability for fucking anything, and like to the point of like he wouldn't camo up. He would like wear camo clothes but not camo. He had like a cut off camo T-shirt, and he wouldn't camo his arms or his head, and he would get his group busted. And then in debrief, you'd be like, well, when this guy made this noise, it brought them down, and then they busted us. And it's like, dude, we saw your bare arms from 150 yards away in the woods, and we fucking walked to you, and you were there. Like, that's how that bust went.
It's amazing how literally taking some charcoal and putting one fucking line on his arm would have changed it to 20 yards rather than 150 yards. But
yeah, or just dirt. Really not
amazing.
Even like something that needs to be sourced. Like just pick up some mud and rub it on you. But I mean, the camo lesson aside,
have you sourced like, your mud?
Well, what I was saying is like charcoal. You have to go find it. Like you could just
no. I just thought it was funny. Yeah, you don't even
no.
Yeah.
Well, and like this guy would be like, these young scouts don't know what they're doing, and like just but he was so sure.
He'd probably taken the tracker scout class. Did you see me hiding my face? How do we take accountability for those guys?
Tom
we
Brown
send them
Jr.
to you,
himself.
Was that?
No.
I knew it was him because he kept checking his fly.
Yeah. No. So the that I would say is like just watching somebody with their that reprogram the world around them and then just shamelessly just fucking lie
What's
and lie.
What's the exhaustion factor? What's the exhaustion factor at your scout class? Like how much sleep are people getting?
We've carefully dialed it in so that we monitor students and we keep them from getting too dumb. Like we had a year where by the last night there was a guy like beating a bucket and singing peace songs because he was like, the only way to defeat this evil is through peace. And was trying to meet our threat with love. And he was summarily shot in the bushes.
So I think that the exhaustion
and then I started giving them more sleep
harder.
After that.
I think the exhaustion factor does make it harder if you go to scenario based. Because then you're trying to accomplish the scenario, so the student's exhaustion kind of plays into that. I guess, do we run into that? What you're talking about? Yes, and usually it takes the whole week to affect any kind of change in those people, if there's any kind of change in those people. Because we've had some people where it didn't matter what you threw at them, it didn't matter how obvious it was of a D-bag they were. I mean, we've had people who were just the worst. Just exactly what you're talking about. No accountability, no respect for their group members, no respect for the class itself and what we were trying to accomplish. Really no business being there in a lot of ways. And even at the very end, when the shadows came and then they're talking with the students and explaining, okay, a student will come, hey, on Tuesday night we were doing this, we're doing the recon thing and we were at this corner and such happened and you blew up and then, whatever happens and the shadows will come and say, okay, so here's what was happening in that situation. Your first two guys were fine. We let them pass. Your next guy was doing X, wasn't following what the rest of the group was doing, and also stepped into our awareness zone, right? Because they could just kill everybody times and times over. So they have to pick areas that are okay, if they go here, this is where they definitely shouldn't be. So if they go here, we blow them up. Anyway, the student with a couple of other group members, they were coming and they pointed right to him you weren't following what the group was doing and you were stepping in the no-step zone. And the guy tried to be like, oh, well, the group point person tried to go over here first. And like the shadow was telling them, no, we saw the point person. We saw where they went. We saw them try to bring everybody in. Everybody else did it. You were standing out in the road. He still was denying it the whole way. But usually, typically, that was a rare case, but typically it takes till like Friday till the D-bag finally melts away. I think that's why it's important that that's part of what we're teaching too, because like that's what makes it. It's not military training, right? We're not training people so that we can then go and like utilize them as an armed force. We're not like, it's not police training. We're not training them so that they can then go and like, you know, interact with people on the street and bring those skills to bear there. It's like an entirely different mindset. You know, it's like the protector, the provider, the listener, the healer, right? The person who has the skill set to know where the people should go to be safe. That's like both for safety and for like the resources, right? That was through the lineage that at least we learned from. Like this came about from the people whose job it was to go and find the next place for the tribe to go to. So if you don't know what food looks like, because you're not experienced in the outdoors, there's a whole level of scout teaching that's like left out. And I'm not saying that you have to have them to have the type of experience that will help save your life, specifically the way that these scout skills save your life. But it helps to put it into that context. Maybe that's part of the reason why the prerequisites. I mean, I don't know. It's a good question to ask because we could change all that today. Like, the old man is no longer there. Like, if we chose to, we could just change the way it's run and we could just have standard students or, you know, people right straight off the street. But it's hard to teach all those things in 1 week.
The whole setup is really like apples to oranges in terms of like...
Yep.
The comparison, like I said at the beginning as a joke, doesn't really hold water. And I meant it not so much as like a dig at it, so much as like...
No,
You have people who are like reading The Way of the Scout, the book, and then being like, no, I'm going to take Scout class. And so to like put a buffer of a couple other classes so they can see how like, oh, no, this is really how it is. This is really the focus. This is really the feel of things and like the reasoning behind things and the world that the context that this actually inhabits, like that makes sense to me. And then realistically for us, like we don't have prereqs, but we don't really also advertise Scout very heavily. And it's because we don't want to draw in just tons of people who they just want to like learn to fuck people up or something, like, or they just like want to go.
Or they just want the glory of that moment,
and they're too scared to join the military, right? Like, so we're not looking for like. We end up mostly working with people through word of mouth, and a lot of those people have experience at our school or another one already. In terms of prereqs, but yeah, it really was like honestly. There was a time period where we had like a lot of like just younger people who genuinely wanted the skill sets because they were doing things that were like traveling and edgy and, you know, or like lived in places where they had neighbors who were sketchy, or like people just started really wanting the skill sets. And I couldn't be like, well, you need to learn all this other shit first. It had to be like,
I get it.
This skill set might lead you, and it did. Like I definitely have had people take scout class and be like, well, the scouting stuff was hard, but I was also like wet and uncomfortable and kept getting lost. So now I'm going to take the survival class because I built value in my scout class as to like having good baseline wilderness skills, you know, and like. I mean, it's like there's that guy, Jesus, what's his name? It's like he's an ex
Jesus is his
military
name?
guy.
I don't think
No,
Jesus was a scout.
Mike.
Who are you talking?
I think it's Mike Glover. And he does like preparedness stuff, and he was talking about how many people like do weapons training but can't run a 7-minute mile. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there is like a reality to that. Like if you have a disability, sure, that's one thing, but like to keep things based
There's no
in
point
reality.
in learning how to kickbox if you can't make it through 1 minute of kickboxing.
Right, exactly.
It's about as tiring as running a 6-minute mile.
Right. And so you end up with a lot of like, yeah, the whole McDojo life thing of people just like teaching
McDojo. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
find it interesting.
So we worked really hard to try and avoid that stuff. Like, we teach lockpicking in Winter Scout, and the students make lockpicks and learn to pick locks. And lockpicking can be really useful, but there are also types of locks that are just unrealistic for a person under duress in low light who needs to be covert. Like to pick, a 16-pin lock.
There's locks that are unrealistic. Period.
Yeah, but is it a 4-pin pin tumbler, like shitty master lock that has like terrible tolerances and is very sloppily made and easy to pick, or is it like, a new car that like is unpickable? So. Yeah, it's about trying to like learn the skill sets enough so that you know where the edges of where they work and where they don't, and then teach people to that.
And the just thinking about like how that whole mindset piece plays into things like you're talking about, when you're mentioning it, like, so you might not use the skill, but if you have it, you like you're saying, you know where that edge is, right? You're opening up a world of possibilities that would have been closed to you had you not learned that skill set. But like, and even just being aware of it as a possibility also opens up different things in your mind, or even just a different way of looking at things. And that's why that's why that mentality is so important. And I think despite all the numerous differences between the way that you teach the scout mindset versus the way that we teach the scout mindset, which really are one and the same, it's just like a different aspect of those of that skill set. Either way, I think we both agree that however we define it, that mindset, the way in which we choose to approach our skill set is the essence of the scout, right? Like whether that's bow drill or whether that's like infiltrating a group of people, sneaking up on some neighborhood kids who keep destroying that little spot, right? It's like my approach to it, the mindset that I take to it is first of all going to greatly increase or greatly decrease my ability to actually stalk into that place. But really, it seems to me like either way, that mindset is what creates the scout. What makes it real.
Absolutely,
is that what you bring to it, that way of looking at it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things need to be happening at once because, like, the physical skills are important. They're a lot more attainable or easier to get to than like changing your mindset for a lot of people, especially around working with others. But I mean that mindset piece, like that really is everything. And it's interesting what you're talking about before, like learning something so that you have the understanding of it, not necessarily to use it. And it's like when I teach people how to ambush other people, I'm not expecting them to ever have to ambush another person. Like, I really, truly hope they do not ever have to do that. And so I was teaching that, and and I explained that to the class, and they were like, so why are we doing it then? And I was like, so you know what a good ambush is, and you know when to be aware of ambushes. Like, if you get good at knowing, oh, this would be a great place to ambush somebody because I've ambushed people enough to get good at it, then when you find yourself in a location, you're like, oh, this is a choke point on a hill where there's lots of cover, like in good defensible positions, like I should avoid this area or be more aware of it. Or like, oh, if I were a cop and I wanted to do a speed trap on this highway, here's where I would hide. Like that thought process of like, this is how I would get somebody allows you to not be got. Because you start to think like the predator, you know? And so if you put yourself in a predatory position, then you can inhabit that mindset and then you can defend from it when you need to like plan the safest route or understand the threat avoidance. So, you know, like, yeah, you know, becoming the threat.
When you talk about... Ooh, sorry.
No, it's good. It's just becoming the threat is a key part of learning to avoid the threat.
Well, and so when you were talking about that, like, you know, the predator versus the prey, it's like, it kind of begs the question, like, what is the scout in that? And I kind of see it as like, there's like one level that contains the predator and the prey, and then there's like another level that's aware of both of those aspects. And so you need to practice like being the predator. You also need to practice being the prey and understand both of those to inhabit that like outer sphere that like encompasses both of those. I would think that the scout, I would never think of the scout as being like a predator, because it's not about being the predator. It's not about like going and eliminating. It's not even, I mean, it's not about like acquisition, right? The mindset of the scout is more about
I'm talking about that more in terms of like when you're setting an ambush, that's predatory behavior.
Well, definitely. Like, I understand that, but what I'm saying is it's still important for the scout to learn that predatory behavior. It's also important for that scout to learn the prey behavior. Where's the safest place to run to? How's the quickest way to jump over this thing and get through this, right? That's prey-like behavior, right? But you need to learn both of those in order to inhabit the place where you have the choice of whether or not you're going to take the predatory behavior or whether you're going to take the prey behavior. If you've never been the predator, you're not really going to think about switching to the predatory behavior when it's needed. If you've never been in the prey mindset, you're not going to think about now's the time to cut and run. That's been one of the hardest things to deal with talking about the context of the scout class with people who are like, there will often we'll often get military people who are like, you know, we're setting up like an ambush scenario, let's say. And during the ambush, these two guys jump up and they realize there's a moment where they could like get the ambushers. And their whole mindset at the time, oh, we would have gotten you. And the person who was there was like, yeah, but you wouldn't have gotten the other four of us who were sitting there. All of these people would have been killed. You guys probably would have been killed as well. You might have eliminated them, but like, you know, like you probably just killed everybody by doing that. Because there's no way you're getting to me 12 feet away before I pull that trigger while you're eliminating somebody else. Like, that's not happening, right? So in that case, those guys, their training, at their level of training in the military, they couldn't get to that prey behavior. Oh, maybe it's best to hide right now. Like, maybe it's best to get the fuck out of here right now. They were so used to that predator behavior, like, go and get it, eliminate it, right? And that's not always like the best way to go about it. And it's not like the starting point for the scout. The starting point for the scout is like that fork in the road. Do I choose the prey behavior or do I choose the predator behavior? Or do I choose something that doesn't fit either of those two molds? Right, but you need to practice both of them to know.
Well, it's like one of the most important things that we talk to leaders about understanding is like objective and intent. Like, what's your objective to get from point A to point B? And what's your intent to be covert? Okay, so now we're moving from point A to point B. We encounter an enemy patrol. We know that our intent is to be covert, so we don't fuck with the patrol and we maintain, whatever movement discipline we need to in order to not become detected by that. Great. Now, if it's overt, if your intention is overt, like we are here to show, as a show of force, to let the enemy know that we're here and that they need to stay the fuck off, like a coyote shitting on the biggest rock in the middle of the trail. That's an overt action, a scat placement, saying to other coyotes, fuck you, this is where I hunt. So, like, to me, a scout uses their what is the need of the mission? What's the objective and intent? Like, that's how you make that choice between, am I going kinetic? Am I being default aggressive? Am I seeing every problem as a nail that I'm going to hammer in? Or am I doing reconnaissance that not being compromised is the number one goal, you know? And then beyond that, here's what we want to confirm or deny about the enemy. And so our objective is to confirm or deny the following things about the enemy through reconnaissance. Our intention is to remain covert. So, like, that allows that decision-making tree to be very straightforward, where people can, you know, as long as you have that objective and intent. And I think it's a great way of thinking about, like, honestly, any goal set is objective and intent. Like, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And what determines success or failure? And once people know that, then also it gives them the ability to make decisions, and you don't have to, like, stick your hand up their ass and run them like a puppet. As a leader, you can make sure that everyone in your team knows the objective and intent, and now everyone can make informed decisions as to why they're doing things.
Is that what I learned at the Brad Salon Root School Scout class, is how to get my hand up the rectum to then puppet operate the person? So
yes.
We've been talking a lot about context during this conversation. And in our modern context, it's totally, in modern way of thinking, right? Our modern human way of thinking, it's totally ridiculous to send your scout spirit back or out down the trail and reconnaissance if you don't see the result and you don't have the data back up. We're like at Tracker, we're always teaching the scout from the context of the ancient scout lineage. And 1,000 years ago, I don't think it would be considered a waste to any person who is living tribally to send their spirit out and reconnaissance a place spiritually.
I think that's a very easy thing.
I don't believe that very many people.
Because there's no fucking way
that many thousands.
We could argue it. Other than to say that, like, the indigenous people that I've met were pretty pragmatic folks, and
modern.
They were having good results with it.
Modern.
I mean, no, I don't think. Like, I don't think it's very.
You think that they thought the same
realistic
way
or useful to cast aspersions as to what people were doing 1,000 years ago in terms of, like, whether or not they believed they could send their spirits ahead of them or not. And regardless of whether or not people thought they could do that, and whether or not people had that skill and now they don't, regardless of any of that shit, if I put a person on a trail holding a red card or a yellow card, and then I take 50 students who have been taught to send their scout spirit down the trail and tell me whether or not the person is holding up the red or the yellow card, I am not going to get anything more than I would off of random guessing. There'll be as many hits as random guessing.
Yeah, but what if one person wasn't randomly guessing? What is 99 times out of 100? What does it matter? It doesn't matter.
But if it's as useful as randomly guessing or, like, random choice, if we flip a coin and we get the same results as if we send our scout spirit, then to me it's not useful. Whereas, like, using tracking or direct observation or fucking thermal optics.
Yeah, but a lot of people can use tracking and a lot of people can use tracking and observation and fuck it up just as much as random guessing. I've seen it happen plenty of times.
Well,
they see
right.
what's
I mean,
in front
that's
of
why
them,
in reconnaissance
they don't do the thing right.
It's size. Sure, but tracking and direct observation done by competent people is going to lead you with more certain results more often than people sending their scout spirits out to do reconnaissance.
Yeah, most likely. But a lot of people can't track for shit. Yeah, well,
That's
look,
true.
you're talking about people.
That's why we have
how many
jobs.
Students can fucking
That's
go and
literally
track?
our job is to take people who suck at tracking and make them better at it by being like, no, stop making judgments. What is the fucking ground telling you? Stop thinking about it. Just make observations. Okay, now let's take those observations and add them up to something. But
well,
I think that
so you can do that with any skill. I guess I shouldn't have opened up that can of worms again. Should have left it lie. My point was only to say that the context is an ancient context, and that ancient context included things that are not physically definable. You can't sit here and
there
tell
we go.
me
There's the big
that
difference
back in the
between our
day-
scout classes. I took the word ancient. We used to call it ancient scout, and I took it out of it purposely because I was like, I'm not teaching ancient people. I'm teaching modern people, and so they should know.
Well, obviously, so are we. Duh. How the hell are we supposed to teach ancient people?
Well, right,
It's
but
about
I mean,
teaching
I
ancient
teach
ways.
So, like, I'll include information about tech, and I'll be like, here is what we know about modern infrared and night vision. Here's what we know about ground radar that's widely available. Here's what we know about, seismic traps and photocells, and, like, we include as much of that as we can. Or, like, including lockpicking is, like, here's how a technology works, and here's the counter to it. And, like, try and incorporate modern context.
We do the same, but we're also adding the ancient into it so that people have the ancient and the modern, because there's value there, right? It's like a forgotten value of humanness. Of course, modern people can't see it, because when proof is needed, faith is impossible. You have to have proof. You must have proof. Where you have to have the data. It's not acceptable without the data. That's all totally reasonable. That's like gotten us pretty far. But it's also left something behind that people yearn for, and that's why we teach a scout class, because people are yearning for something that is outside of that framework. Otherwise, nobody would give a shit and nobody would come to our classes. What is it that's outside of that framework? And is there a more direct route to it? Perhaps, right? Maybe that's what sending your scout spirit is all about. It's not about being right or wrong on the.
It's so funny because, like,
there or not, but
a lot of this boils down to preference. In that, like, what I guess I hold issue with in terms of the approaches, and, like, if I could really put my finger on it, it's that I prefer that level of things left a little less said, or, like, a little
totally
less broken
reasonable.
Down and laid out. And
totally,
that the way
it was
that
one
we
of my biggest
carry...
struggle with all of that. I was like every spiritual class, philosophy class I went to, I always hated the structure. Couldn't stand it.
Right. Because it's like yes, like, so when people take our scout class, they walk away with something that is greater than the sum of the parts. That's not just like, oh, I learned how to stalk and how to make traps and how to, hide my tracks and blah, blah, blah. Like, they come away with it with a different sense of life, like a whole different overlay that affects their, I have people who don't do anything related to scouting who took it 9 years ago. Like, one guy I was just talking to on the phone, he was like, yo, dude, I use shit from that class on a daily basis. Like, that shit affected me so deeply. And it has he was like, and it's not like stalking or camouflage that I'm talking about. It's like how to deal with interactions, how to deal with hardship, waking up early, moving through the dark, like having confidence that I can do something that seems impossible at first glance. Like, you know, and that's what you're talking about in terms of mentality, and that's what you're talking about in terms of like tapping into an ancient part of ourselves. Like, to me, that's like, I connect with that through like being like, I'm going to inhabit the mind of a predator. And I see that as like, in a way, like a spiritual ascendance to the mindset of like a puma. You know, that like, I don't lay it out and make a structure for it and be like, now we're going to inhabit our puma spirits. But when I'm like, I'm a fucking predator and I'm going to eat you now, like, I am doing the same kind of thing with myself. You know, I'm putting myself conscientiously in a different mindset. So I think it's funny because as much as like we can go back and forth about it, there's similar takeaways. We're just getting there a little differently.
Yeah, so when you talked about that, like, you know, wearing the mind of the puma, so to speak, like the reason why an exercise like you're describing with the scout spirit holds value in a scout class is because, like, what if you were to choose to wear the mind of yourself as the most evolved scout you could possibly be, right? Maybe that's all the scout spirit is, right?
Sure.
Like, maybe instead of where I don't need to wear the mind of the puma, if I wear the mind of my most evolved self that is like completely aware and completely open, unrestricted from like by biases of how the world is. You know, I'm just saying I think there's value in the tool, but like you said, we use it in different ways, or we come about it in different ways. We approach it. And I totally respect the value of completely and totally implicit learning when it comes to the spiritual skills, because there's something implicit about them. So learning them implicitly, like it's a more open avenue for a lot of people versus explicitly teaching it. And the way I always viewed that as the person whose job it was to teach that, when in times where I was like, I don't see the value in this, is that like you have all these different exercises, practices that we're telling people about, meditation, scout spirit, you know, like sensing presence, all these different like triggers, tools that we use. And it's like, a lot of them don't work for me, but there's one or two that really, really work and that I fall back on, and I use those all the time. But then there's that one time where like, this is a little different, and I just happen to like implicitly, you know, send my scout spirit down the trail and recon. But I'm not trying to do that, right? I'm not like intentionally trying to do that. Maybe it just comes as a feeling, you know, hey, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a right-hand fork we should take up ahead. You know, like it might just happen, right? But if I give somebody 100 different exercise, all of which are no better than chance, and they find that one that speaks to them that's a little better than chance, now when they encounter that situation, they have more tools to choose from. The same way, like, you might want to learn how to ambush somebody that you may never use it, but you might encounter the situation and have that experience. Oh shit, I remember doing this myself, and maybe I'll try this way about it. But I agree that we're still reaching the same place. It's not like you're more able to reach this place from a tracker scout class versus a root scout class. It's just a different way of teaching it, but you're still arriving at that same place, which is like that sphere, that place of like what we call the scout, because we're just calling it the scout. But I mean, every ancient culture had a scout. They just might have called it something different, and probably a different way to approach it.
Yeah. Well, and what that makes me think of is like, instead of me saying you should send your scout spirit down the trail, I'm more likely to be like, hey, you need to consider your enemy and their most likely course of action, and then you need to consider their most dangerous course of action, and then you need to make a plan based around what if they do the most likely thing and what if they do the most dangerous thing. And then in that way, you are sending your scout spirit down the trail. In that you are
it's a one-way
thinking ahead as to like what possible futures exist, and
or feeling ahead,
Right. Well, and you can include that as, to me, what I would caution a student about is I would be like, great, take that data or that information from your scout student and put it into the matrix, or your scout spirit, and put it into the matrix of decision making. But unless you are holding, like with recon, there's this whole thing, size, shape, color, condition, and what it appears to be. And what that means is like, if you're doing recon and you're looking down the hill at like an enemy position and you see a big cylindrical olive drab thing that's, 4 feet long and 8 inches thick and has what appears to be like a handle coming off of it, appears new, appears to be like a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher. Now, in recon, you wouldn't say they have a rocket launcher. Even though you're looking at it and you're like, they have a fucking rocket launcher. You would say size, shape, color, condition, and what it appears to be. It appears that they have a rocket launcher. Because you don't want to like make that decision 100% based on saying unless you're fucking holding the rocket launcher. Because, like you said, people make mistakes. Eyewitness accounts are not useful all the time. I would say that your scout spirit should go in the same category of like, I'm getting a feeling that they might be down there. I don't know if they are or not. I don't know if that feeling's correct. I'm not going to throw that feeling away. I'm going to be extra cautious as I approach this, but I'm also not going to treat it as an absolute and be like, oh, my scout spirit said they're down there, so they'd better be, so they're definitely going to be there. And so that's like, I guess, where I would bring it down to is like, as long as it's fitting into the decision-making matrix and you're not like 100%ing it or expecting that, then fucking whatever. There isn't really much difference in what we're saying.
So yeah, and so the value lies in, if you practice it, you might 1 time out of 100 have enough of a success to be like, oh, well, shit, I'm feeling that same feeling that one time where I had that success with this. Right? That's why you might practice it, even though it's like, okay, this is dumb shit again. We're doing this shit again. Like, because if I keep practicing it and I get that one success, I might have more information to go off of now where I'm like, okay, I feel like the enemy is down there. Like, I'm not so sure, like, yes, I'm going to question that feeling. Right? But I can also sit with it longer, or like give it more credence if I've spent some time trying, practicing that skill set. Because it is a skill set, really. I mean, even if it's just learning to listen to those feelings, it's a skill set. People ignore those feelings all the time, right? So a lot of that work, we might give you an exercise where you're going to go down the trail and do this thing. People's trip up might even start within themselves that they didn't listen to that. They don't know how to listen to that. So like, to trigger that, that's what those exercises are, to me, are really for. It's not about if it's effective or not. It's about like, can you shut that brain up for a fucking second to listen to more information than just the side? Because I'd much rather have the feeling and then pay attention and then see the thing and then hear it and then touch it, taste it, have the physical, than completely ignore it and see it, hear it, feel it too late. Right?
Right. So, but I mean, the way I look at it though is like, we as humans base our habits around the feedback that we get from the actions that we take. And if you're just like, as a species, not like a person who's like overly conceptualizing everything, but if you're just like an animal, right? And you effectuate a behavior. So the trigger is like, I get a feeling that someone's coming down the trail. And then, my behavior is like, I pay attention to that feeling and expect a person to come. And then the result is like the person comes or they don't come. And then you learn from whether or not they come or don't come that you should pay attention to that feeling or not. And so what is interesting to me in terms of like the ancient part of ourselves is like, I wonder how effective children who were never beaten into submission in school to not pay attention to those feelings at all would do in testing like that versus people who have been taught not to pay attention to anything other than what their authoritarian leaders are telling them.
Yeah.
Or no, just like you take directions from... Right. And that like, I think the value of putting people in classes through exercises like that is that it's saying like, fucking pay attention to your feelings and like have an awareness of yourself and what yourself is like, or what communications you're getting. And it's okay to pay attention to those things, and you can look to yourself for information and not just like whoever is your leader at that moment.
And so whoever scout class it is, this is all like a good reason for people to take a class like that, because the being in a prey situation helps bring about those feelings a lot more clearly than being in a predator situation. And like, how often do you have the chance for people to, you know, like I could go out and practice my scout skills, but if I do it at a class, then I've got some adversaries who are skilled. I don't know. There's some bits of people who are like, they don't want to take a scout class because they're like, they don't want the stress of being hunted, right? Or they don't like the feeling. It's like not, you know, it's not peace and love enough. Or for some people, like it might trigger some, you know, PTSD, like people who are, you know, experience some heavy shit and don't want to go down that road again. Is like, this isn't about like beating you down with that stress. It's about simulating that stress and then giving you options for operating with that stress going on. Like we have to create the stress for you to get the feedback, but it's not. It's holds a value that goes beyond stress situations. Like you're saying about your friend, how he uses that every day, how to communicate, how to listen, how to work with other people, right? That it was because it was stress tested that he's willing to trust it. And so that's a huge value of taking a scout class like you run or like we run. That I think people maybe avoid it because they're afraid of that stress, but like it's not the same as being blown up. It's like honestly, simulating being blown up with some experience or some options.
Aside from people who wash out within the first day because it's just not the right class for them, aside from that, the thing I hear most about scout class is it was too much of a peak experience and now my day-to-day life seems boring as fuck. Or like I was an important member of a group and I had a role and it was awesome to have life be like relatively cut and dry. Even though like we were being hunted and it was raining and it sucked, my job was to navigate a group from point A to point B. My job was important. People relied on me, and it felt fucking good to do that, to work in context, to have meaning, to have action, to have it be important, and like to be supported by a group of people who all really wanted me to succeed is not something I experience in my day-to-day life, and I fucking miss it. Those are like the two biggest complaints I hear from students after Scout is like, peak experience hangover and like where the fuck is my community of ride or dies in my day-to-day life,
which is a great message for people who maybe are a little bit intimidated by taking a class like that. Like you're not I can't think of one person who's taken the class and was like actually went through the whole class and was like, oh my god, it was so stressful. Oh yeah. It's like it's exactly what you say. It's like it gets to all those spiritual things in a very direct and real way without any spiritual bells and whistles at all, because you're accessing it through your entire nervous system in a very real way. I think we've beaten this horse, even though it's not dead. Shall we call it? Is that enough? Before I bring something else up that's going to cause a really stern face?
Go for it, bro.
There we go. Hide it in the beard. Anyway, you've spent a long-ass time listening to Brad's phone go, "Tick-toot."
That happened twice.
I'm just giving you shit. Thanks for listening, everybody.
It's a new system.
This is a new system. I gotta say, the delay is worse on this one. Everything else is fine.
Oh, yeah.
The delay is worse on this one. Sorry about the delay, folks. And yeah, sorry about the delay in this episode coming out. We have a life, okay? None of you fuckers are paying us to listen to this podcast. You gotta get some more listeners.
That's all I gotta say.
I got 6 children. I need a new pair of shoes. Oh,
104 range.
We need a GoFundMe for our podcast. No, we don't. Just keep listening, keep subscribing. Tell your friends it's not as bad as Brad's angry face makes it look. It's not as bad as my constant interruption makes it sound. Continue to like and subscribe, and let us know what else you want us to talk about, and we don't talk about it. Okay, everybody.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Peace out.